Hello everyone, I just thought I'd run you through the process that I use to take the wet and damp cappings that I produce after extracting, and then the whole process that I follow to end up with a solid block of wax. Now, after extracting about 70 frames yesterday, I've decided to press the wet cappings and just take out as much of the honey as I possibly can. Now, after the cappings are pressed and most of the honey is extracted, they are placed into a bucket, and I fill that bucket with water and leave it for 24 to 48 hours before I start melting this whole mess down. The cappings have been soaking in water now for about 3 hours. As you can see, the colour is starting to change slightly as the honey dissolves off the wax. I'll probably leave these cappings soaked for another 8 hours or so before I try to actually melt them down and remove that dirty water. The cappings have now been soaking for about 2 days, and it's time now to have a look and see whether they're ready to start melting down. And as you can see, they've broken up quite nicely. Much of the honey has dissolved, so it's time to put them into a container with some water, and we'll try and get those cappings melted down a little bit, and then we'll pour the whole mixture of water and wax into a bit of a mould. The next step is to pour off the water that was mixed with the cappings. You can see it in this container, and obviously there's residual wax there that I'll be pouring into a stainless steel container. And if you have a look over here, this is the way that I'm going to be cooking up the wax. I have half a beer keg with a fire on it, and another half a beer keg with some cappings and water in the bottom. You can see that the heat is just starting to build up. I'll keep the heat under control with a hose there, so I can keep the fire at just the right sort of temperature. When I get the whole mixture molten but not boiling, I'll come over here and I'll pour it into these containers, these plastic containers. This is the initial stage of recovering the wax. Now, these strainers, as you can see, they've copped a fair amount of use. They're basically just a wooden frame with an aluminium fly screen mesh in place. That's going to catch most of the slum gum and quite a lot of the dirt. So the aim of this process is to reduce the amount of dirt in the wax by about 90%. After this first process, when the wax melts and then sets, 90% of the waste will be either in the bottom of the mould that I'm using, or it will be on the bottom side of the wax. I'll then go through a process a second time, and I'll start using fine filters. So anyway, I'll let this fire do its job. It's been about 5 to 10 minutes since I first put the wax on, and as you can see, the temperature's starting to build, the wax is starting to melt. I've got to be careful that I don't overheat the mixture. I'll keep stirring, and I would expect in about 5 minutes time I'll be pouring this molten liquid in through my strainer into the mould. Once most of the wax has worked its way through the sieve, you're left with slum gum, and a bit of a jiggling action tends to drain out most of the wax. You can actually roll it a little bit like, I suppose, bread dough. When it gets to that point, most of the wax has been recovered, and then it can go straight into a bin, and we can go to the next pour. Well, as you can see, the wax has been poured. You can see that there's still impurities in the top, but that's okay. I just wanted to get most of the impurities out on the first pour. All I need to do now is put a cover over the wax. It's just a block of wood, and I'll leave that there now overnight until the wax sets, and then I can remove it from the mould. Sometime tomorrow I should be able to refine that wax a little bit more. The second container won't contain as much wax, and you can see that there's a lot of slum gum still floating on the surface that got through the sieve. There'll be a lot more water in that second lot, but that's okay. There's still enough wax there that's worth recovering. Anyway, have a look tomorrow and I'll show you exactly what we turn up with. Well, it's the next day and the wax is already set nicely. I've just knocked one piece out and you can see that there's still quite a few impurities in the wax, but we'll get rid of those next time that we melt the whole block down. Let's turn it over and have a look. And you can see there's still quite a lot of slum gum and also some propolis there on the bottom. We should be able to give that a scrape and get rid of that fairly soon. Let's see if we can turn this one over as well. This block of wax won't be quite as large. And again, a few impurities, but we'll get rid of those. I'll clean those up in a couple of minutes with a bit of a scrape and I'll show you what we end up with. The wax has been broken up and placed into an old deep-sided fry pan with about 1 litre of water, and as you can see the wax is now starting to melt down. You can see the ball valve that I've placed on the side of the fry pan to actually allow the molten wax to run out. Now the wax runs through a Chuck Super White, through another strainer and then down into a mould below it. And here we have it, the strained wax. I'll leave that sit overnight again and we'll see what we come up with in the morning. Okay, the wax is now set. It's the following morning and as you can see there's still a few minor impurities in the wax, but let's tip it out and see what we can come up with. And there we have it. Pretty good. Just a little bit of dirt and grime and propolis on the bottom, not much though. And that's a nice clean block of wax. Now that's now clean enough for me to use to make foundation, but if I wanted to use it for lip balm or wood polishes, I'd probably filter it once more.